People say destiny is poetic. Mine was practical. I was 3 years old when the Wilson elders decided I would one day marry Zayne Wilson. Their heir, their pride, their tiny, stoic statue of a son who already looked like he filed taxes for fun. I don't remember the engagement announcement, but I do remember the first time I saw him. He was 5, I was 4. I waddled toward him in a frilly dress, holding a flower I had picked for him like a peace offering. He stared at it, then stared at me, then walked away. That was the beginning of our love story. A masterpiece, truly. I grew up dreaming that the boy I was engaged to would one day, I don't know, smile at me. Or at least nod. Honestly, even a blink in my direction would have felt like progress. But Zayne Wilson, he was the human embodiment of a locked door. Tall, silent, polite in that distant aristocratic way that basically translates to, do not disturb, do not approach, do not exist within my personal radius. And unfortunately, destiny, or our meddling parents, decided we would share the same last name long before we knew the alphabet. Play with Mary, our parents used to tell him. He didn't. He just stood there, hands shoved in pockets, looking like a tiny 5-year-old CEO who had more important things to do. Growing up, our families met often. Business brunches, cultural events, the occasional family picnic where everyone pretended it wasn't just another corporate meeting on grass. Every time, someone would nudge him. Zayne, go play with Mary. Take her with you, son. Be nice to your future wife. You'd think that last one would get a reaction. Nope. He'd nod politely and walk off, alone. Meanwhile, I'd trail behind him with the stubborn dedication of a puppy trying to befriend a cat with anger issues. I shared my crayons. He didn't use them. I offered him half my chocolate. He handed it to a passing toddler. Once I stood in front of him and announced, "I'm your fiancé." He blinked once, okay, and then walked away. Honestly, that was the day 7-year-old me understood the true meaning of heartbreak. My peak humiliation was at age 13, when I baked him a heart-shaped brownie, only to watch him hand it to his kid cousin without even looking at me. By the time we reached high school, I thought things might get better. They did not. Zayne grew into the type of boy who made girls whisper and teachers smile proudly. Tall, brilliant, serious. A future CEO, wrapped in school uniform and frost. And me. I was the girl who knew every one of his favorite snacks, the way he frowned when he focused, and the fact that he always sat near windows because he liked the quiet. I also knew he still didn't look at me. I tried subtle things. Little things. Leaving a spare pen on his desk when he forgot his. Bringing homemade cookies to group study meetings. Choosing him first for projects. Cheering quietly for him at debate competitions. He accepted everything with polite indifference. Thank you, Mary. That was the most I ever got. And even that felt like a courtesy he was fulfilling out of obligation, like stretching before a workout. By 17, I told myself it didn't hurt anymore. By 18, I almost believed it. Adulthood came faster than I expected. College passed in a blur, and somehow Zayne and I stayed the same, parallel lines with the same last name but no intersection. Until one morning, my parents called me to the living room with those smiles. Though we've decided something, and you will not escape, smiles. Zayne was already there, sitting stiffly with his parents. I froze for half a second. He didn't even blink. My mother clasped her hands dramatically. Children, the time has come. Children. We were 22, but sure. Your engagement was decided long ago, his father added. And now it's time to finalize the wedding. My heart did a flip. Not the swoony kind. More like the, I am falling from a building but politely kind. I glanced at Zayne. He wasn't protesting. He wasn't frowning. He wasn't even surprised. Just calm. Like he had expected this. Meanwhile, I was sitting there trying not to visibly short-circuit. Our parents began discussing dates, venues, traditions, alliances, the whole dramatic Wilson package. Zayne's mother turned to us. "You two should talk, get reacquainted. You'll be married soon." Married? To the man who had barely looked at me in 2 decades. We were left alone in the living room. The silence was awkward enough to knit a sweater. Finally, he spoke. "Marry." I looked up. "Yes." He hesitated. A tiny, tiny crack in his permanent composure. "I hope this arrangement doesn't trouble you." I almost laughed. 3 lifetimes of trying to get him to notice me, and now he was worried it might trouble me. "No," I said softly, "it's fine." He nodded. The ballroom looked like it had stepped straight out of a royal wedding Pinterest board. Chandeliers glowing, violins playing, roses everywhere, and people already whispering about the perfect Wilson union. Perfect. I smoothed my dress and fought the urge to laugh. If only they knew I spent half my life trying to get the groom to make eye contact. Zayne stood near the entrance, greeting guests with a calm elegance that made the aunties swoon. His posture was rigid, formal, a man trained for public attention. Not me, though. He had never looked at me the way he was looking at business partners and distant relatives. And yet, every time I glanced up, his eyes were already on me. A quick flicker. Then he looked away, as if caught. My stomach twisted. I moved to the side to catch my breath, and that's when the memories started slipping in. Flashback, age 12. We were at a Wilson family garden get-together. Kids were racing, adults chatting. And I was sitting under a tree, holding a second juice box. I had grabbed it for him, grape flavor, his favorite, after watching him wander around silently by himself. I approached him nervously. "Here," I said, smiling. "You like this one." He blinked at the juice. Blink, blink. Then said, "You can have it," and walked to stand with the adults. I stared at the juice box until it got warm. Someone tapped my arm. "Mary, sweetheart, photos." I smiled, letting myself be dragged toward the center where Zayne waited. He looked at me as I approached, really looked, not the usual glance and move on. "Ready?" he asked softly. His voice had a tone I didn't recognize. Warmer. Less scripted. I nodded, even though my chest was tight. The photographer instructed us to stand closer. Zayne stepped in hesitantly, like he wasn't sure if I'd allow it. His hand hovered near my waist. I inhaled sharply, then forced myself to relax. It was fine. This was normal. People touch their fiancés. He placed his hand lightly on my waist. My heart jumped. His fingers tightened just a fraction, as if he noticed. Flashback, age 16. We were in high school. I had rehearsed all night for a class presentation, mostly because I knew Zayne was in the audience. Halfway through, I tripped over a cable and stumbled. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, because what else do you do? Except him. He wasn't laughing. He wasn't even looking at the screen like everyone else. He was looking at me, eyes narrowed, hands clenched like he wanted to fix something but didn't know how. I thought maybe this meant something. Later, I caught him in the hallway. "So," I said, smiling hopefully, "my presentation." "It was fine," he said flatly and walked past me. It took everything in me not to cry right there. The photos continued, poses, smiles, close-ups. My cheeks hurt, my feet hurt. My heart, well, it had been hurting for years. After a break, I stepped outside to breathe in the cool air. Zayne followed a few seconds later. "Mary," he said, approaching slowly, "are you all right?" I looked at him, really looked. He had changed, taller, sharper, more composed, but the eyes were the same. Steady, unreadable, quiet. Except tonight, they weren't unreadable. They looked worried. "I'm fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just tired." He didn't believe me. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened. A subtle reaction, almost invisible unless you spent a lifetime studying him. Which, unfortunately, I had. His voice lowered. If the party is too much, we can leave. I'll handle the rest. Leave. Handle. So many words he had never used with me. My heart did that annoying, hopeful flutter. I shut it down. Zayne, I whispered, you don't have to pretend. He blinked. Pretend. You don't have to act like you care, I said quietly. We both know you never did. A beat of silence. Then, for the first time in my life, I saw something shatter behind his calm expression. He stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, like I was something fragile he was scared to break. Mary, he said softly, you have no idea. If someone had told me yesterday that Zayne Wilson would voluntarily leave an engagement party early because I looked tired, I would have laughed, choked, and asked if they were confusing him with a golden retriever. But here I was, sitting in the backseat of his sleek black car while the city lights slid past the windows, and Zayne sat beside me instead of in the front. That alone was suspicious. Zayne always sat in the front whenever chauffeurs were involved, formal, detached, polite. Now he was next to me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his shoulder. I stared out the window, pretending to be fascinated by a billboard for toothpaste. My thoughts refused to cooperate. Memories kept rising like old letters slipping out of an attic box. Zayne had said, Mary, you have no idea. No idea about what? That he could speak in a soft voice. That he suddenly cared whether I was tired. My brain was spiraling so hard it needed seatbelts. The silence grew heavy. Finally, he spoke first. Are you feeling better? I nodded without looking at him. Yes. A long pause. I could practically hear him thinking, which was new. Zayne's thoughts were usually locked behind triple security. Mary, why did you say I never cared? He asked quietly. My heart stuttered. I wasn't ready. Not for this conversation. Not for him asking. I swallowed, because you didn't. I did. His voice was steady, almost defensive. I always did. I let out a humorless breath. Oh, really? Since when? Was it the time you ignored my drawings, or the cookies, or the brownies, or... He blinked. Brownies. I closed my eyes. Great. He didn't even remember. Never mind, I muttered. It was stupid. It wasn't stupid, he said so quietly I thought I imagined it. My eyes snapped open. He was looking at me, really looking, not the usual polite glance. His gaze was intense, focused, almost pained. What brownies? He asked again. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. It was ridiculous. For 22 years, he couldn't be bothered to notice the weather, let alone my feelings, and now suddenly he cares about baked goods. I folded my hands in my lap. Fine. I made you a heart-shaped brownie when we were 13. You gave it away without a word. His brows pulled together. I gave away your brownie. Yes, I said softly. You always did. Another beat of silence. Then he whispered, almost to himself. I didn't know it was from you. I frowned. What? He didn't explain. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare crack in his perfect composure, and leaned back, exhaling slowly. You think I disliked you, he said. Didn't you? My voice wobbled despite me. You barely spoke to me. You never smiled at me. You acted like I wasn't even there. Zayne went still. Completely, utterly still. Then he said, I didn't stay away because I disliked you. My breath hitched. Then why? His jaw clenched, eyes dropping to his hands. He looked almost ashamed. Before he could answer, another flashback hit me. I was sitting alone during lunch, pretending to read while everyone else laughed in groups. Zayne was with his debate team, serious, focused, surrounded by people, the perfect image of someone who had everything. I was sipping my juice when he passed behind me. He paused. For the smallest moment, he just stood there. I felt his presence before I even turned. When I looked up, he jerked his gaze away and walked off quickly, expression tight. I thought I had imagined it. Hoped I hadn't. But he never approached. Never spoke. Never did anything again. So I let it go. The car slowed at a red light. He spoke, voice low. I stayed away because I didn't know how to be around you. I blinked. What does that even mean? He looked at me, eyes finally vulnerable. It means, he said carefully, that every time I tried to get closer, I felt like I would ruin something. My heart stopped. Zayne Wilson, the man who never flinched, never stumbled, never hesitated, sounded afraid. He continued, voice barely above a whisper. I never hated you, Mary. I noticed you too much. He noticed me. Me. All those years. Before I could say anything, the car pulled into the Wilson estate driveway. Zayne stepped out first, then turned and held his hand out for me. I placed my hand in his. He morning after the engagement party, wedding preparations began with the enthusiasm of a military operation and the subtlety of a marching band. Planners, designers, florists, tailors. Everyone descended upon the Wilson estate like cheerful, glitter-wielding invaders. I tried to smile through it all, but my mind kept replaying last night. Zayne's words. I never hated you, Mary. I noticed you too much. Noticed me too much. What did that even mean? I was adjusting fabric samples when my mother whispered, Smile, dear, for the 4th time in 10 minutes. I forced one. She beamed proudly. Unaware, I was undergoing an emotional identity crisis. Across the room, Zayne stood with the event planner, listening intently as she discussed themes. His posture was calm, deliberate, elegant as always, but his eyes kept drifting toward me. Every single time. I pretended not to notice. Mostly because my stomach did weird somersaults each time it happened. Flashback, age 8. We were at his family's beach house. Every kid ran into the water except me. I was terrified of the waves. Zayne saw me standing alone on the sand and for a moment stopped splashing with the others. He walked closer, looked at the water, then at me. My tiny heart fluttered. Maybe he would stay with me. Instead, he said, the waves aren't that big, and ran back into the ocean without waiting for an answer. I tried not to cry, telling myself he was just being honest. But that night, I overheard him asking an adult if the sea was dangerous, whether a wave could sweep someone away. It took me years to realize. He had been asking about me. The planner clapped her hands. Everyone, time to choose the wedding color palette. My mother and his mother instantly jumped into a diplomatic debate that sounded suspiciously like 2 politicians discussing a peace treaty. Meanwhile, I found myself standing close, too close, to Zayne as they spread samples across a long table. He didn't step away. He didn't shift. His arm brushed mine lightly. And he didn't move it. My heart thumped. He must have heard it. It was loud enough to count as background music. What do you think? He asked suddenly. I jolted. About what? He nodded toward the fabric. Gold or ivory? I blinked. He was asking my opinion. I like ivory, I said softly. It's gentle. He studied the fabric. Then quietly, almost too quietly, he said, It suits you. My breath caught. He didn't look at me when he said it. But the tip of his ear turned slightly pink. Zayne Wilson. Blushing. I needed documentation. The day continued in a blur. Invitations. Florists debated rose shapes, while Zayne kept adjusting his cufflinks every time I walked by. Menu tasting. He noticed immediately when I disliked a dish and told the chef, We'll skip this one. We. As if we made decisions together. Venue selection. We toured a stunning garden venue, and while everyone admired the architecture, I noticed something else. Zayne lingered near me, following at a pace that matched mine, not the group. It felt strangely protective, like he'd always walked behind me without me knowing. Flashback, age 18. We were graduating high school. Parents, teachers, chaos everywhere. I was searching the crowd desperately for my family, and somehow got pushed around by taller students. Someone grabbed my elbow, gently but firmly, and pulled me out of the rush. I turned. Zayne. He didn't say a word, just held my arm until the crowd thinned. When I looked at him, he let go instantly, stepped back and walked away, present. By evening, we returned home exhausted. I collapsed onto the living room couch. I think I've smelled enough flowers today to last a lifetime. Zayne sat beside me again, surprising me, and said, "If you want fewer flowers, we can reduce them." What? I blinked. Really, but the planner said. He looked directly at me. "Mary, it's our wedding, not theirs." The room fell silent. He'd never said our anything. Our wedding. Our decisions. Our future. My voice came out small. "Zayne, why are you being so different?" He took a slow breath, eyes dropping to his hands. "I'm not being different," he said quietly. "I'm just finally doing things right." My heart flipped. He looked up, expression raw and unguarded. "I don't want you to think I'm indifferent," he murmured. "Not anymore." A warmth spread through my chest, painful, overwhelming, hopeful. But before I could reply, the door opened and our mothers entered, squealing about jewelry selection. Zayne's jaw tensed, but he stood politely. Before leaving, he paused beside me for a heartbeat longer than necessary, and let his fingers brush my hand. And he walked away. I spent years convincing myself. I imagined the concern in his eyes. The week before the wedding felt unreal. Not because of the chaos, though there was plenty. Not because of the expectations, and definitely not because of the relentless stream of relatives treating me like a museum exhibit. It felt unreal because of Zayne. Zayne, who had spent our entire childhood pretending I was atmospheric background noise, was now everywhere. He hovered near me during outfit trials, checked if I'd eaten during rehearsals, walked beside me without being asked, listened, noticed, watched me. Honestly, it was suspicious. Like aliens had replaced him with a more emotionally competent version. Flashback, age 10. We were at another family event. I was sitting at a table, struggling to tie the ribbon on my dress. Zayne passed by, glanced at me and kept walking. A solid 10 seconds later, he came back. Without a word, he tied the ribbon carefully, perfectly, and then marched away like he had committed a crime. I had stared after him for minutes, confused and hopeful. But the next day, he went back to ignoring me. I never understood why another time we were at a school function. Someone teased me about being Zayne's little fiancé. Zayne stepped between us and said coldly, "Don't talk about her like that." The boys shut up instantly. I stared at him in shock. He didn't look at me. Didn't check if I was okay. Just walked away. I had spent years assuming he did it because he did not like hearing I was his fiancé. Now I wasn't so sure. Present we were at the jeweler's to pick accessories. As I tried on a necklace, the clasp got stuck. Suddenly Zayne stepped behind me. "I'll do it," he said, voice low. His fingers brushed the back of my neck, warm, steady, almost reverent. My breath caught. For a moment, the world narrowed to that touch. He didn't look at the mirror. He looked at me in the mirror. "Beautiful," he said. I froze. The jeweler beamed. My mother squealed. My soul levitated. I turned away in panic, trying to hide the flaming red of my face. Few hours later, everyone was buzzing with excitement. I slipped away to the balcony, craving a quiet moment before the storm. A few minutes later, the door slid open gently. "Zayne." He stepped beside me, not too close, not too far. "You're overwhelmed," he said. It wasn't a question. I sighed, a little. He nodded. If you want to step out tomorrow, even for a minute, just tell me. I'll take you. You really don't mind marrying me, I whispered before I could stop myself. Then he turned to me fully. Mary, he said, voice almost a breath. I've waited 22 years to finally be allowed close to you. Why would I mind? I froze. Every thought vanished. He stepped closer, just a few inches, his voice deeper. I'm not going to pretend anymore. Not with you. I stand in the bridal room, bouquet trembling slightly in my hands. Because apparently, merging empires needs a wedding aisle and vows instead of Excel sheets. My mother peeks in. Mary, sweetheart, he's waiting at the altar. Of course he is. Zayne always shows up. He just never shows himself. I inhale deeply and step out. The doors open, and for a second everything blurs. People stand. Camera flashes pop. I try to keep my breathing steady. And then I see him. Zayne. Tall, serious, hands clasped in front of him, expression unreadable as always. But for the first time in forever, he looks at me. Really looks. His chest rises, too fast. His fingers twitch. Something flickers across his eyes before his face clicks back into neutrality. Great, my brain really is making up hallucinations on my wedding day. My hand slips into Zayne's when we reach the altar. His palm is warm. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't withdraw. If anything, his fingers tighten around mine. The pastor speaks, but I barely hear anything until it's my turn to say, I do. My voice wobbles, his doesn't. His I do is steady, deep, and shockingly unhesitant. Almost protective. We exchange rings. Cameras flash. And then, he lifts my veil and kisses me. Later we sit together, greeting guests and cutting the cake. Zayne keeps glancing at me, subtle, almost shy, as if checking whether I'm okay. I should be ecstatic. But instead my body feels strange, heavy, too warm. I smile weakly when someone compliments my dress. The room spins slightly. Zayne leans toward me. Mary, you look pale. I force a laugh. It's just nerves. No, he says, voice suddenly firmer. You're not well. My fork trembles. Okay, maybe he's right. I try standing up, and the world tilts like a cheap carnival ride. His arm is instantly around my waist. Sit, he orders softly but worriedly. He brings me to our suite, supporting my weight the entire time. I feel feverish, shaky, barely able to stand without holding on to him. The moment the door clicks shut, he presses a cool hand to my forehead. His breath hitches. Mary, you're burning up. I think it's fine. It's not, he says, tone low, controlled but clearly rattled. Why didn't you tell me earlier? He helps me sit on the bed, then kneels down to remove my shoes, carefully, almost reverently. Zayne Wilson. The man who never smiled at me. The man who walked past me for 22 years. The man who now looks like he's terrified of losing me. My vision blurs again. I lie back. He places a cool cloth on my forehead, adjusting it every few minutes. I hear him on the phone with a doctor, voice tight and urgent. She's feverish. No, she can't come there. Send the medic here. I don't want her moving. Then he sits beside me, brushing a stray curl away from my face. Not indifferent. Not cold. Not distant. Just Zayne. Quiet, worried, present. Sleep, Mary. His tone is soft, too soft for the man I thought hated me. As I drift off, I feel his hand gently holding mine. And in that moment, fever and all, one truth settles into my chest. Maybe Zayne Wilson never hated me at all. Maybe he just never knew how to show he cared. Something smells like lemon-scented sanitizer and panic. Not mine. His. I blink awake slowly, head still heavy but not spinning anymore. The room is dim, curtains half drawn, and right beside the bed, Zayne Wilson is asleep in a chair. Well, asleep is generous. More like folded into a shape no human spine is meant to endure. His suit jacket is on the sofa, His tie is loose. His hair is a mess, like he kept running his hands through it all night, and his face. His face is soft. Worried. Exhausted. Human. My heart lurches. I try sitting up, and the moment the bedsheets rustle, his eyes snap open. He's at my side, so fast the air shifts. Mary, are you in pain? Do you feel dizzy? Do you? I'm fine, I whisper. And I swear, Zayne exhales like he's been holding his breath for hours, days, maybe years. He sits on the edge of the bed, elbows braced on his knees. I didn't sleep, he admits quietly. You did, for 3 seconds, I tease weakly. His lips twitch, an actual almost smile, but it disappears too quickly. Mary, he says, voice low and serious, I need to tell you something. Oh boy. Is this the part where he tells me last night's fever was actually food poisoning from the wedding caterer I insisted on? But then, he doesn't look annoyed. He looks terrified. He reaches for my hand. I feel the warmth of his palm before I understand what's happening. He's holding my hand again. Voluntarily. Consciously. Like he's afraid I'll vanish if he lets go. I owe you an explanation, he begins. For what? For everything. His jaw clenches, and he swallows hard like he's about to confess a secret he's buried since childhood. I wasn't indifferent, he says quietly. I wasn't ignoring you, not because I didn't notice you, but because I noticed you too much. My breath catches. Zayne's eyes lift, raw, unguarded, achingly honest. I didn't know how to talk to you, he continues. Every time you smiled at me, I froze. Every time you tried to get close, drawing me pictures, offering me help, sitting beside me at events, my mind just stopped. You always looked annoyed, I whisper. He winces. I know, I'm sorry, I just didn't know how to handle you. You were warm and bright and sweet, and I. He gestures vaguely to himself. I'm not. I shake my head. You're not cold. He gives a humorless laugh. Mary, I'm literally a Wilson air trained since childhood to have the emotional range of a refrigerator. Despite everything, I choke out a laugh. Then his thumb gently strokes the back of my hand. But last night, his voice softens. I thought you'd faint in my arms. I thought something would happen to you, and I realized I can't lose you, not after finally getting to marry you. Zayne, my throat tightens. He meets my eyes fully. I've felt something for you for years, he says. I just didn't know how to show it, or if I even deserved to. My heartbeat is suddenly everywhere, in my fingertips, my neck, my ribs. He leans slightly closer. I know I've given you every reason to think I didn't care. His voice cracks. But I do. I always have. And I'm sorry it took our wedding night and your fever for me to finally say it. I blink hard as my eyes sting. Say what? I whisper. Zayne breathes in slowly, as if steadying himself for the first real truth he's ever spoken out loud. Then, he lifts my hand and presses a shaky kiss to my knuckles. I'm in love with you, Mary. The world stops. My breath. My thoughts. My pulse. Everything. Zayne swallows again, vulnerability stark in every line of him. And I want you to let me try, he says softly. To show it properly. To make up for every year you thought I hated you. To be someone you can actually rely on. I'm speechless. He cups the side of my face gently, thumb brushing my cheek. You don't have to say anything now, he murmurs. Just don't push me away. I exhale shakily. Zayne. Yeah. I never wanted to push you away. His eyes soften so deeply it hurts. I lean forward first, brushing my forehead lightly against his. His breath hitches, like this tiny gesture is more meaningful to him than the entire wedding ceremony. I want to try too, I whisper. And Zayne finally smiles. A real one. Soft, warm, a little shy. The kind of smile that makes me fall in love with him all over again. The private villa is so quiet, I can hear the waves brushing the shore like they're nervous for us. Honestly, same. This is our honeymoon. A real first night together. And unlike the wedding night, I'm not sick. And Zayne isn't terrified. Well, terrified in a different way, maybe. He enters the room with 2 glasses of sparkling juice, sleeves rolled up, top buttons loose, hair soft from the ocean breeze. And I absolutely forget how lungs work. Feeling better? He asks, voice warm and low. I nod, smiling. 100%. Good. A tiny smile tugs his lips. Because I've been waiting to actually spend time with you. His tone dips slightly, suggestive but gentle. Enough to make my heart launch itself into orbit. He hands me a glass, our fingers brush. The spark is loud enough to drown out the ocean. We sit on the balcony, watching the sunset paint the water gold. I feel his eyes more than the sun. You're starring, I whisper. You're beautiful, he whispers back, no hesitation, no stuttering, no cold mask. Just truth. My cheeks warm. Zayne. I meant what I said, he murmurs. I want to make up for every moment you thought I didn't want you. I'm not going anywhere, I whisper. He smiles into my skin. Good, because I intend to love you for a very, very long time. And for the first time in years, I believe him completely.